Hey everyone, Michael here, and as we know, the Crunchyroll Anime Awards happened a couple weeks back. Now, these anime awards are kind of considered anime's version of the Oscars at this point. Everyone who considers themselves an anime fan look towards these awards with prestige. Now, the anime that won the big prize of Anime of the Year was in fact, drumroll please, Solo Leveling Season 1. Now, I think we all knew it was going to happen. It may not have been everyone's favorite, but it was definitely the most popular, and since this does take fan votes into consideration, it's kind of inevitable. With that being said, I'm seeing a lot of pushback from fans on the win by Solo Leveling, with much of the displeasure of this fan vote being from Frieren fans, as a lot of them think that Frieren should have won due to Frieren's superior writing, messaging, and animation. But other fan groups have weighed in as well. Now, I actually think both anime shouldn't have won Anime of the Year. It should have been an anime not even on the short list of Anime of the Year nominees, in my opinion. So I'm not going to push super hard on who I think should have won Anime of the Year. Maybe in a future video, I'll talk about the anime I think should have actually won it. But again, this video isn't about that. What I do want to do in this video, however, is explain to fans why I think Solo Leveling won Anime of the Year and what I think it means for the anime industry in general. Because I'm not sure if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I do think it's a shift in what anime studios will value moving forward. Now here's the thing, I'm not gonna lie, when you take a look at Solo Leveling and break it down to each of its components, there is something better than Solo Leveling at every turn. Here's what I mean. Let's take a look at Solo Leveling's animation. It's actually really good and it's probably its strongest element, but Frieren is obviously a better anime in that department. If we're talking about writing, then depending on what you value, Solo Leveling is probably the weakest anime on the list, with arguably Frieren, Apothecary Diaries, Kaiju number 8, and Dandadan taking that top spot. If we're talking comedy moments, then that's obviously going to go to Delicious in Dungeon. If we're talking about soundtrack music, then I think the opinion is subjective and Solo Leveling might have an argument here. But from a technical standpoint and range perspective, you're going to look at Dandadan first. And hell, let's talk about character work, right? Jinwoo won Character of the Year, but I think everyone would argue that the character dynamics in Apothecary Diaries and Delicious in Dungeon are better. Now, I don't want to trash Solo Leveling even more than I have to, because what Solo Leveling does is really interesting. If you look at what Solo Leveling does better than any other anime on this shortlist, it's easily the best produced anime of the year. Now, usually when I bring that up and people other than myself bring up production in regard to anime, a lot of people are confused on what it actually means. I've kind of seen production as a term in the internet anime community be used as a shorthand for animation, and no, I'm going to tell you right now, that's not what production means. So let's talk about it. When you Google production, Oxford has two definitions for it. One definition in the general sense and one for the term in a film sense. But ironically, I think the definition for production in a general sense is a better definition on how to explain production in a film sense, as the definition goes like this: the action of making or manufacturing from components or raw materials, or the process of being so manufactured. And it's this definition I kind of want to use for the basis of my argument as to why Solo Leveling hits so hard with fans. It's not the best animated anime, it's not the best in terms of its writing, I don't even necessarily think it has the best main character of the year, but what Solo Leveling does is it has an otherworldly sixth sense at understanding how to mix all of the raw parts of its anime together and then put something together in post-production that gives you an anime which captures the imagination of both the hardcore fan base and the general fan base. Case in point, let's talk about Season 1, Episode 6. So, as you know, Solo Leveling is a show where a person named Sung Jin-woo takes up hunting monsters in dungeons as a profession, as his mom is sick and in a coma, and to keep her alive, they need money. The problem is he's woefully weak, as he's nicknamed, quote, the weakest hunter of all mankind, and is constantly getting hurt, until one day after some events, he discovers that he can get stronger through leveling up, while others can't thanks to being given tasks by a system and is now called a player. Now, episode 6 is the classic episode where it's revealed to Sung Jin-woo that he has been deceived by 3 of the impromptu party mates he was in a group with. Again, these are impromptu party mates as he was seeking work between parties here and there in order to make more money. The group that deceived him is led by a man named Hwang Dong-suk, who left Jin-woo and his newly found friend Yoo Jin-ho to die against the boss of the dungeon. Now, after nearly dying multiple times by the boss, Jin-woo does pull it off in the end and beat the boss monster. And then when the fight's over, Hwang Dong-suk returns and they now turn their attention to killing Jin-woo and his friend, realizing that their con has now been found out, and if they let him and Jin-ho free, then they are in for a lot of trouble, giving Jin-woo a reason to seek retribution against the team. But also the system tells him to unalive these guys in order to complete his task. Cue the badass one-shot defeats of the other 2 members in the group, and then the all-famous "Death is Gonna Come For Me" music over a voiceover by the incomparable Alex Lee and some stunning animation. What you end up getting when you mix all these things together is a moment that makes you go. Now, for as good as the animation, the writing, and the fight was in this scene, is this scene as well animated and the fight choreography as tight as the fight scenes in Frieren? No. Is the music used here as good as, let's say, the music used in scenes of Dandadan? No. But does the production of Solo Leveling, which is again the making of all its raw elements brought together, make it just as, if not more compelling than anything Frieren, Apothecary Diaries, Delicious in Dungeon, Kaiju Number 8, or Dandadan have produced when mixing all the scenes of their parts together? Honestly, there's a strong case to be made that, yeah, it does. Soul Leveling takes a story that people can get behind, which at its heart is an underdog story. A situation in the plot in which the underdog was betrayed by people and was mocked to then allow him to get some retribution back. Then that story is backed up with some fantastic art and good animation, uses the tools it has at its disposal like a great voice acting cast, especially in dub with Alex Lee doing his thing, and then takes the one OST song it has that is actually good and semi-original, knows where to place it in this scene, and voila. It doesn't do too much and it doesn't do too little. It knows exactly what it's trying to do and produces around it just right to the amount where it doesn't feel campy, but at the same time feels heart swelling. So yeah, look, I get it. It may not convince you, the audience who likes, let's say, Frieren or Dandadan, to now put down your argument for why it should have won Anime of the Year and be a Soul Leveling stan. But I am just trying to explain that there is an argument to be made that Solo Leveling deserves Anime of the Year. So with all that out of the way, what does this mean for anime and the industry moving forward? Now, on one hand, I think this is a good thing for Crunchyroll, the voting community, and in some parts, the fans to finally say something about a certain type of fan base through this vote. I've always said that if there's one thing anime fans, especially the quote, anime elitist fans, cannot resist, it's being a hipster. The anime elitist, in my opinion, and their line of thinking has a lot of problems when it comes to the industry, but their biggest when it comes to this, especially, which I'll remind you is picking Anime of the Year, is that they always seem to pick the anime that overcomplicates their messaging, even when that anime's message really isn't that deep. AKA, they pick an anime that has a certain indie brooding vibe, and its messaging is something that, while usually is somewhat profound, is overrated in its depth and complexity to pseudo-intellectuals because the anime itself takes itself extremely seriously. Which means you usually get a very flashback heavy show who treats its audience like students who want extra homework after class. That describes shows like Frieren and Apothecary Diaries to a T. And look, I'm not going to pretend like I didn't like these shows. I did like these shows. But this is the thing I think a lot of anime fans, especially the anime elitist group, miss about this whole thing. Anime is a full production, aka what is your anime after the sum of its parts. Even I'm a victim of judging an anime solely based on its writing. Hell, it's the reason why the anime I would have picked for Anime of the Year isn't on the nomination. Because even though it's got great writing and messaging, it unfortunately has a lot of other flaws. I've seen artists love anime solely based on its art and animation, but again, that anime probably has a lot of flaws. I've even seen music nerds pick anime because of its soundtrack, but hello, these things have to mesh together. Look, God of High School got bad reviews because even though the fight choreography and fight scenes were amazing, the plot was way too fast. Ranking of Kings has great animation and its writing is actually pretty good, but its OST and art left something to be desired. And I could go on and on about lots of anime in the past that were great in one department but were lacking in the other. At some point, you have to tell these anime elitists, no, you aren't the smartest in the room. And sometimes you have to tell them that, look, the message of the anime they think is that deep, we just didn't think it was enough for it to win Anime of the Year. And also, it might not even be that deep. And conversely, maybe that conversation is also, yes, the animation might be good, but we might like something a little bit more because it's got something else to it, like maybe better writing. I think on some level, you see what I did there? No, but seriously, I think on some level, this is what I think the vote of Solo Leveling Season 1 represents. And I think that this year and last year, going with the picks that they did, is trying to say that over the strong field that was out there in both years. With that being said, that's the good of Solo Leveling Season 1 being voted Anime of the Year. Let's talk the bad. And the bad is, well, I hope you like every anime being the same, because that's what's probably going to happen now. I know I spent like 10 minutes trashing shows like Frieren and Apothecary Diaries and Dandadan and Delicious in Dungeon and Kaiju Number 8, but I actually like these shows because on some level they were risky, original ideas, and stories that challenge the viewer on some level. I think what is often missed by anime fans is that anime is a business, and in business, they copy things that work. So you better believe that the anime industry will try to recreate and mass produce Solo Leveling success. Hell, anime has done this before multiple times. For example, the isekai craze. The problem with the isekai craze was not just because of the word isekai, but A, the way isekais were being done, aka the wish fulfillment power fantasy with no obstacles, did not make for good long-term storytelling, and B, as well as more important to this video, there was an oversaturation of the isekai subgenre because anime is a copycat business. Now here's the thing, Solo Leveling is very good and is very popular, but unlike Frieren, Dandadan, Delicious in Dungeon, and Apothecary Diaries, it's easy to replicate due to how simple the plot points are. And due to its popularity, you are going to see a lot of people recreate Solo Leveling, but with their own twist, and a very disingenuous twist at that. I think there's something to be said for if on top of Solo Leveling being extremely popular and it winning Anime of the Year, because it's very unoriginal, it can lead to a lot of copycats. How many quote-unquote the next Solo Leveling reels, TikToks, and shorts have you seen already? So sure, it may be extremely well produced, But is Solo Leveling being the anime of the year the direction we want the industry to go, knowing that there's going to be a lot of Solo Leveling copycats? Or do we want the industry taking risks and being original by picking an anime like, let's say, Frieren for anime of the year? I guess what I'm trying to say is, I get why Solo Leveling won anime of the year, but I'm also equal parts happy and equal parts sad about what that means moving forward. Anyway, that's the video. Thank you for watching. I know I haven't been making a lot of videos lately as my output has kind of diminished due to a lot of things in life. Nothing bad, just life is lifing. Anyway, like, share, and subscribe. I'm going to go ahead and get some sleep because I'm getting older now. Y'all have a great day. Later.